Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Herbie Mac podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about admit to rise, the power of powerlessness. Now, we know that I was in recovery. And in recovery, I discovered some very good principles to help bring sensibility to something that didn't make any sense. You know, addiction is something that when you break it down and you look at what it does to you, you realize that addiction doesn't really make any sense. So the first step in bringing sense to life and the chaos of life, we have to take a first step, something that is preliminary, in order for the recovery to be authentic or coming from a good place. I like what one scripture says: my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Now, in the first step, step one, we admit we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, the first thing you have to do is to admit that you were powerless over that addiction. That's not easy to do. When the addiction itself has its own philosophy, its own outlook on life. Addiction will tell you one thing when reality is telling you another. Alcoholism will tell you one thing when reality is telling you another. Now, you should know this is a valid testimony because I admit that I am an alcoholic and that I was powerless over that alcohol. I had to acknowledge that I was looking at this alcohol as an answer to my problems. So my thinking has to be changed about alcohol itself. Alcohol is very cunning. It is very deceitful. It is deception. It is a false counterfeit of the true spirit. It is the gateway of other spirits, including all other forms of narcotics and opioids that's destroying so many people's lives and families and future. So we have to come to a place where we admit we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. Whenever you run to a substance to help you deal with life, you ought to be careful, because that substance will lie to you. And it will make you think that everything, if it's not all right right now, you're going to somehow make it right by maintaining your relation with the addiction or the alcoholism. That's the deception that comes. So the first thing you have to acknowledge is that I am powerless over this. When I do this, this is how I cope. This is how it is. This takes the edge off. This is the answer to my pain. This is the answer to my issue. This is the answer to my struggle. And the deception will have you adding on more pain and more struggle by being addicted to this thing. So the first major thing in the first step that we see is that the courage to admit is a powerful thing. A lot of us, we don't want to face the fact that we're powerless over our addiction, that we're powerless over that alcoholism. We tell ourselves, here's the deception, we tell ourselves that I have the power to quit, but you never quit. And as long as we think in our minds that I have the power to quit, but yet I don't quit, you're never going to acknowledge your powerlessness to quit. So you have to realize that I have to come to an understanding that I cannot quit on my own, because I'm the one that keeps going to feed my addiction. So to admit it is to acknowledge that this thing has become a problem in my life. I've created a problem on top of all the rest of my problems. And we go to that thing seeking satisfaction and seeking a temporary relief, that we get caught up in a cycle that keeps us going back to back to back to back to back. So we have to learn to own our powerlessness. We got to learn to acknowledge that, okay, this is out of my control. And even though I'm telling myself I can stop, I haven't stopped yet. And I'm still doing the same thing over and over. Listen, step one isn't about your defeat. Step one is about truth. It begins our process of healing by surrendering, listen, the illusion of control. That's what it's called, the illusion of control. Let me go a little deeper with this. Now, the illusion of control psychologically it can lead to stress, disappointment, or even guilt. When we believe we should be able to control something, like how others behave or how a situation turns out, we can blame ourselves when things go wrong, even if it really wasn't our fault. It can also give us a false confidence, which might backfire when reality does not match our expectations. Let me give you a everyday example. Let's say you always wear a certain shirt when your team plays, but you believe it helps them win. Now that illusion of control in action. You feel like you're part of the outcome, even though deep down your shirt has nothing to do with it. That's what the principle of surrender comes in. When you surrender, surrendering doesn't mean that you're giving up. It means accepting that you can't control everything. And that's okay. It's about doing your best and then letting go of the result. People who embrace surrender often feel calmer, clearer, and more grounded because they're not constantly fighting to control what can't be controlled. I like what one therapist wrote. Dr. Gabor Mate states, quote, "Not all addictions are rooted in abuse or trauma, but I do believe they all can be traced to painful experiences." Now, end quote. I do want to kind of hit on this a little bit because I noticed that whenever I get stressed, whenever I'm trying to control the outcome of things, I would always go and try to take the edge off. Because even though I knew I couldn't control the results, I was still in my mind feeling that I'm controlling the results by numbing the pain. Or if I'm in a relationship and the relationship isn't going how it should or how we feel it ought to be, we go and we run to the addiction to hide the reality of the pain we feel about the relationship. Everything doesn't have to be based on trauma. Some things can be based on disappointment in others. When you feel disappointed, you didn't get the promotion in the job. Instead of embracing the pain of being rejected, we try to deal with the pain of the rejection by going to our addiction of choice. In my case, it was alcohol. In some people's cases, it's opioids or narcotics or some type of synthetic, whatever it may be, heroin, cocaine, it doesn't matter. A food addiction. Every time you feel like somebody talk about you, just go and eat food. Whatever the addiction may be, we have to surrender We have to acknowledge and accept the fact that we cannot control everything and everybody in every relationship. And we can't even control ourselves, because if we could, we wouldn't need recovery. So denial delays your destiny in recovery. You cannot recover if you are in denial. You can't take the first step if you deny the fact that you can't control this addiction. This addiction has gotten out of control. It probably started as a recreational thing, but now it has become a way of life. And until we come to the acknowledgement and accepting the fact that this new way of life that's found in addiction and alcoholism is not the best way of life. Somewhere along the line, this addiction took place over everything we cherished. Everything we do, we are being consumed with it. Definitely when it comes to my situation at alcohol, I was involving it in everything. In my happy times, in my sad times, in my good times, I was just including alcohol as if it was doing me good. And there would be some times that I would do more than I should have consumed. And when I reaped the consequences of it, I was reeking in my car. And I say, Lord, if I can just get over this, I'm not going to do this no more. And I found myself returning again and again and again to that little shot glass that does and has such a harmful impact. Not only on your mind, it has a harmful impact on your body, your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys. And I was dropping it like it was hot, and it was burning me from the inside out. But it also destroys your family. It also destroys your dependability. It also is like a little fox that comes in and destroys the whole vine just a little bit at a time. So if you deny the fact that your addiction, your alcoholism has gotten out of control and that you are not managing it, it has become included in all your activities. Before you go, after you go, while you participate and while you're not participating. If that's the first thing you always go to when you get mad, upset, depressed, or whatever, you should consider that that thing is now becoming unmanageable. It could have started off as a recreational thing, a social thing, something that was done just on the weekend, but now it done crept into Monday and Tuesday. Now you can't wait till the nighttime come because you're just going to consume all this stuff and just wash away all the things that you have to deal with. But then you wake up the next day, there's those things, and there's that addiction trying to wash it away. And we can't get into recovery. Truthful, heartfelt, personal recovery until you take the first step, which is to surrender. Acceptance is the doorway to freedom. Acceptance. acceptance. Surrender is not giving up. When you surrender, you don't give up. Really, you know what surrendering is? It's handing over to a higher authority. See, once you accept the fact that I'm powerless over this addiction, now you surrender yourself to now hand over your powerlessness. You hand over the addiction that's taken over your whole life. You hand over that addiction to a higher authority. So step one is about surrendering. Coming to the conclusion that I cannot control this. It's controlling me. You need to understand that the mirror is in the mind. The mirror of the mind. I like what psychology has to say about the first step when it talks about unmanageability. When you're not able to manage due to this addiction, due to this alcoholism. Now, unmanageability is emotional chaos. It comes from strained relationships and spiritual disconnection. Okay? Unmanageability is important to understand in recovery because it helps you bring into focus to see those areas in our lives that we really are not attending to as we should, because addiction comes in and deceives and it disillusions us. Unmanageability means life feels out of control. Like no matter how hard you try, things keep falling apart. And from a psychological point of view, this often happens when someone is overwhelmed by emotions. They're overwhelmed by the habits. They're overwhelmed by the situations that they cannot seem to change. Let me give you an example. Someone might feel stuck in a cycle of addiction, in a cycle of anxiety, in a cycle of all of these unhealthy relationships. And even if they want to do better, they keep repeating the same patterns. This can lead us to feelings of frustration, confusion, and hopelessness. When we feel these, this is what they call unmanageability. Unmanageability is a sign that a person's usual ways of coping aren't working anymore. When you would cope with situations in addiction, you come to the conclusion that you feel like your life is out of control So you try to bring control to it by engaging in the addiction, which leads to more unmanageable ways, because the addiction is leading the way. You are out of control because now this addiction has become a major part of your life. I wonder what would happen if you get rid of that addiction. Even though you're still going to have problems, that's one problem that you don't have to have. So it's not just about bad choices, but it's about a deeper emotional struggles that we have, like fear, shame, or the need to feel like we're in control. Recognizing unmanageability is often the first step towards healing, because it can open the doors for asking for help and trying new ways of living. I like what one psychologist says here. He says, quote, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." So don't look down on yourself. Don't condemn yourself because of addiction. Good morning, Bishop. Don't look down on yourself because of addiction or alcoholism. Understand that the reason why that thing got out of control is because we've been trying to deal with our fear. We've been trying to deal with our shame. We've been trying to deal with the guilt by self-medicating, by falling deeper into addiction, going one more drink, thinking that that one more drink is going to bring a little bit more comfort. And that's just the deception of the addiction. It's a deception, and it's so deceiving that for some, let me tell you a difference between a drunk and an alcoholic. A drunk is somebody who drinks and drinks and drinks and know that they shouldn't be drinking that much, but they have no desire whatsoever to stop drinking. Their liver can be swollen. Their pancreas could be infected, and they will not stop drinking. That's a drunk. You see them at the liquor store. You see them on the side of the road. You see drunks. But the difference between a drunk and an alcoholic is somebody who knows that they like liquor, that they may love liquor, but they realize that this liquor is not good for them. They realize that this liquor is not satisfying what they went to the liquor in the first place to satisfy. And we went searching for comfort in the bottle, comfort in the needle, comfort with whatever substance that we use to try to cover up that emotional struggle, that relational pain that was inflicted, or that situation that is strenuous, or that future that you realize you cannot control. And you try to numbify the realities of life by using. The alcoholic realizes that their life has become unmanageable. They realize that they are powerless over their addiction, and they surrender that addiction over to a higher power, a higher authority, because you can't do it in yourself. You're weak. That's what the alcoholic is. The drunk does not want to be sober. The alcoholic sees the problem and surrenders and admits to the problem. But we got to realize the mirror of the mind. Our minds are like cluttered rooms. Step one, it begins the clearing process. So our minds, when it's cluttered with all of these different things that is being told, going in different directions, trying to live life, trying to make your way, and things just get a little overwhelming, and we just run to our nearest fix. And the very fix that we thought we had discovered becomes a trap. And we get caught in this ever-going cycle. Step one, it stops the wheel of the cycle from rolling and rolling and rolling. It puts a halt to it. It begins the process for us to get up off of that cycle. And we begin the clearing process, clearing out all of the deception, clearing out all of the smoke screens, clearing out all of the lies that we done told ourselves, clearing out all the deception that we have ever done. That's step one. Powerlessness, listen to this, there's some insight. When you admit that you are powerless, powerlessness is the soil where humility and honesty grows. When you admit that you are powerless, it automatically humbles you. If you want to have a spiritual experience, you humble yourself, and then you will experience the hand of the divine. You will experience the activity of God, a power that is greater than yourself, that will restore you to your right mind. We need to understand that in step one, that the spirit has a whisper. And when we embrace this divine help, when we tap into the Spirit of God at this point of our addiction, we come closer to step one. Step one invites the divine into the wreckage of our control. It invites God directly into that place of addiction. It invites God directly into that place of alcoholism. It invites the Spirit to replace that seemingly powerful thing and to readjust your mind to that which is right. I like what Thomas Merton wrote, quote, "We are not at peace with others because we are not at peace with ourselves." A lot of time people who are in addiction and who are in the throes of alcoholism aren't always good people to hang around. And sometimes the reason why is because they don't have no peace. We seek peace in all kind of things and all kind of people and all kind of places. And if we don't get that peace from them, if we've always been let down, we go and we run to our addiction and try to find peace, but we don't get no peace there. We only get a temporary fix, and then we're right back at trying to find that substance. And if you're not careful, you develop this cycle to where even though you think you can stop, but you try to stop and then you start back again a month later, 3 months later, 5 months later, a year, 2 years. Without it, then somehow that cycle comes back. Why? Why is that? It's because you got to understand that you're an addict. You're alcoholic. You desire that, and that you are powerless. And unless a power that's greater than you gets involved, you're going to always succumb to that cycle. So the very first step in recovery is to be honest that I have a problem, that I have an addiction, that I have become an alcoholic. And until you come to that conclusion, you will stay at the bottom of addiction. When you have a spiritual awakening begins when we allow ourselves to be loved. And when we come upon step one, it's very difficult because addiction will cause us to be so depressed that we don't even feel we deserve to be loved. You will have the tendency to feel shame for it, to feel less than. And this is not true. When you have a spiritual awakening, you begin to realize that you are loved and that you are lovable. You have to accept that. You have to admit, hey, I'm powerless, but I can be empowered by the Spirit, that I'm willing to be loved. That means to get involved. Other people, other places, other things. You notice when you are in addiction, you hang out with people who are in addiction. You run with them. Y'all know the same lingo. You know how to have fun. You know where to go. You know how to get it. And that reinforces the cycle of addiction. But when you get off of that cycle and you get off of that merry-go-round, then you hop on the bandwagon with some different people. You go some different places and you do different things. You don't do the same thing, because that's what a merry-go-round is. Once you get off that cycle of addiction, now you need to go, once you start that first step, now you need to go and get involved with people, places, and things that connect with your recovery, that connects with you not participating in that. Not to look down on the person that is, but you can't go to the same places and do the same thing and think you're going to get different results. That's just insanity. Something has to change. So trusting a greater power than yourself can do what we could never be able to do alone. And let me tell you something. Meetings, recovery programs, they help us. I want to encourage you to go to a meeting that's nearby. NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery may be at your church, but get involved with others. You cannot do it alone. So I want to invite you to maybe just sit down and write one area of your life that you trying to control, but you fail to manage it. Write down an area in your life where you're trying to be in control, but you just not controlling. It's not stopping. You don't got it under control. And then ask, what will it look like to release that one thing today? Beloved, I want to encourage you to participate in small groups. Get involved with some type of accountability. Remember, it's better to walk together with somebody on this road of recovery. Hallelujah. Thank you so much for listening to the Herbie Mac podcast. Today we were talking about the power of admitting, the power of just knowing that, look, I got this issue, but I'm going to surrender it. Admitting is the beginning. Powerlessness is a gateway to grace. Surrender is strength when it's partnered with faith. So I want to close today's session out with a prayer. Father God, we thank you for these first step to recovery. God, I ask that you give us courage to admit. Give us strength to trust and humility to begin. In your wonderful name, we thank you. You've been listening to Encourage Recovery with Herbie Mac. Thank you for listening to the Herbie Mac podcast. Please do like, follow, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you, my beloved.